Hello and welcome to today's video. We are looking at Hex today. Hex is a collectible card game that's free to download on PlayStation 4. Obviously microtransaction supported like all collectible card games. This one's interesting in the sense that it is entirely a Magic the Gathering clone, doesn't even try and hide that. So I'm probably going to use some terms through this video that if you're not familiar with Magic the Gathering won't make a lot of sense to you. Apologies for that in advance. But I can promise you that this game has a comprehensive tutorial that will walk you through everything and get you up to speed with the game. So before you're even asked to invest some money in additional card packs and the like, you will certainly be up to speed with what you need to do and how to play this game. What you're seeing me do here is play against an AI opponent. The game forces you to play a lot of AI opponents before it even lets you kind of jump out there and play against real humans, and that's because there's some complexities in there as a Magic the Gathering clone, and I'm sure the developers didn't want you to jump into the deep end and get trounced straight away and give up and never play it again. So my deck that I've picked for this match against the AI is a white and red deck. White being, the colours work exactly the same way as they do in Magic the Gathering really. White is the focused on the healing and defensive and strong defensive units. Red is the fairly destructive energy and is about, you know, fast, strong, weak creatures and dealing lots of direct damage to the opponent. So I don't generally play with a red deck when I play Magic the Gathering. It's not my style. White is, and that's why I picked this deck. When you start the game, you've only got some set decks to choose from, and I'm looking forward to getting through this point so I can start to build my own decks and build a strategy which is more in line with the way I play Magic the Gathering. But this deck worked well enough for me at the moment. What you're seeing at the moment is the opponent have numbers advantage over me. Their deck is about cycling lots of fast units quite quickly. And at the moment I just haven't got the creatures out there to really put up a strong defense or offense. And they've also cast a spell on my one unit on the table at the moment, which forces it to tap. And again, that's a Magic the Gathering term, so sorry for people who don't know what that is, but forces it to tap before a combat phase, so it's basically useless for attacking or defending. But I do have an advantage with this deck, which you will see me play through as the match goes on, that pretty much all of my characters give me these little +1/+1 tokens, which I can then apply to any character I want, and that lets me build up a strong and quite healthy force of quite good statistic characters to fight with, and makes it quite hard for the opponent to actually kill them. And as the battle goes on, his smaller, weaker, faster units start to struggle against this strategy that I've got. But as you can see, just like in Magic the Gathering, every turn you can put out one resource. They're called lands in Magic the Gathering, obviously. In this game they're gemstones, so white being diamond, red being a ruby. It's not very subtle, it's quite easy to understand, of course. As you can see on the table, the character or the card that's being cursed to tap every time before a combat starts had flying, which was a very useful ability. It means that creatures on the ground can't block you, exactly like in Magic the Gathering. And the other units that I've got there are ground focused units, of course. This game was built in Unity, and there are a couple of things I noticed as I was playing. Firstly, it does have a tendency to freeze from time, not freeze, to stutter from time to time. The movement of the cards across the playfield can get janky. It doesn't ruin the game because this is obviously a slow-paced strategic game, and you know, that kind of thing. It doesn't matter if there are janky movements and stuff. It's not Dissidia Final Fantasy or something like that. But it goes to the presentation of the game, of course, and unfortunately that's a bit of a downside. But other than that, the art on the cards is quite beautiful. The layout of the environment's quite beautiful. The interface makes a lot of sense. The game was built in Unity, so it's nice and clean and it's stable. It runs well enough when it's not stuttering around. The one thing I will say is that the text on some of the cards is a little bit hard to read. especially when you're playing for the first time. You constantly have to pull these cards up to see what is the text that's actually on them, so you can recognize what the card does. And that, of course, slows things down at first. As you get familiar with the deck, of course, you won't need to look at the cards each time you summon them. But, and in fairness to the developers, it probably would have been quite difficult to represent all that information in a clear and legible way in any other way. So I'm not going to criticize the game for that, but it does slow the first couple of rounds that you play down. And every time you come across a new opponent who has new cards, you're going to be constantly checking what they're doing. I don't know how much of an impact that'll have on the multiplayer, whether there's timers that make it difficult to read all of the information in time. I'm hoping that the developers have built all of that into it. And obviously this is a game that requires patience in the first place. It's not an action game, it's a card game. So hopefully when I get to start playing all the people online, there's that element of patience in there, at least. Once you've played through the first couple of low ranks and you've got past the people who download the game and give it a try and then give up fairly quickly. Once you get into the more serious card game players, of course, there's certain behaviours that I think everybody would expect from one another as they're playing online. Like I said, I think this has been released elsewhere. I think this is new to PlayStation 4, but I think the game's been around for a while elsewhere. It seems like there is a competitive scene. I think I saw notes about actual prize money contests and things like that. So, I mean, obviously a developer of a collectible card game in a world of Hearthstone and the like can't not try and foster that competitive scene, and obviously that's what this game is trying to do as well. But whether it can do that or not is another matter. The one thing it does have going for it really well is the art on the cards is really quite beautiful, especially when you look at it close in. The developers have done a good job creating that same appeal that people have with Magic the Gathering, in that every time they get a new card it's something to look at, something visually exciting and so on, without it looking like Magic the Gathering. The one difference that this game has to Magic the Gathering is the artists that they've got have done a very different job in the art. It's interesting that they've stuck with static art though, because a lot of the other collectible card games in video game world anyway that are out these days have animated art on their cards, which is something that you obviously can't do with a printed card. But it's a nice visual touch for people who are playing a digital version of the game. I'm obviously I'm on two minds about that. On the one hand, I do like when the cards are animated beautifully and have that nice animation to it. It does add a depth to the visual. But at the same time, I like the aesthetics of actually having a card, a static card. I play card games all the time in real life, away from video games. And it's nice to have games that still look to capture that aesthetic and that appeal as well. So as you can see, I'm really starting to swamp the opponent. I've been able to get quite a few of my guys out there and boost them up to a point where he has no counter. The AI has no counter to them. There's just no cards in his or her or it. It's an AI. There's no cards in its hand that it has that can actually counter some of these 4 and 5 toughness and defense monsters that I've got. So I'm just about to win the battle. As you can see, it takes about 10 minutes for a game, which is good, and I think I will be playing this one quite a bit in the future. So give it a go. Like I said, free to play, so no harm, no foul. And I hope you enjoy it, and hopefully maybe I might even see you online at some point. Thanks very much for watching, and I shall see you at the next video.